Today we're going to talk about equivalent fractions. You can almost see the word equal in equivalent. That means we're going to talk about equal fractions. For example, I have two circles that are the same size. This one is divided into 4 pieces. This one is divided into 6 pieces. You can see that 2 out of 4 is the same size as 3 out of 6. So that means that 2/4 and 3/6 are equivalent fractions. Sometimes we want to find equivalent fractions and we don't have pictures, so we need a mathematical way. There are 2 ways to find equivalent fractions. Number 1, you can always multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number. For example, if I had the fraction 5/6, if I want to find an equivalent fraction, I could multiply 5 by 3 and 6 by 3 and get 15 over 18. That means 15 over 18 is equivalent to 5/6. Or I could multiply 5/6 by 7 over 7 and get 35 over 42. 35 over 42 is equivalent to 5/6. As long as I multiply numerator and denominator by the same number, I will get an equivalent fraction. Sometimes I can divide both the numerator and denominator by the same number. For example, I have 15 over 20. I could divide 15 by 5 and 20 by 5 and get 3 over 4. That means 3/4 is equivalent to 15 over 20. I could take 16 over 24 and I could divide both 16 and 24 by 8. 16 divided by 8 is 2, 24 divided by 8 is 3. So 2 over 3 is equivalent to 16 over 24. We've said that you can always multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number, but you can't always divide them by the same number. If you look at 18 and 25 in the fraction 18 over 25, there is nothing you can divide both of those numbers by. Therefore, you could not get an equivalent fraction by division here. Let's take an example. Suppose we were supposed to find 2 equivalent ratios for the fraction 16 over 20. Well, I could take 16 over 20 and multiply both numerator and denominator by 2 and get the fraction 32 over 40. That would be equivalent to 16 over 20. Or maybe I want to multiply by 5 over 5. Multiply 16 by 5 and get 80. 20 by 5 and get 100. 80 over 100 is equivalent to 16 over 20. With this one, maybe I want to divide by the same number. So I could divide 16 and 20 by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 8 over 10 is equivalent to 16 over 20. Or I could divide both of these by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. 4 over 5 is equivalent to 16 over 20. I could multiply by any number. With 16 over 20, I could divide by 2, or I could divide by 4. So if I'm supposed to find 2 equivalent ratios, I have many, many choices. There are not just 2 that will work. For tomorrow, your assignment is to find 2 ratios that are equivalent to each of these fractions. Notice that I use the terms ratio and fraction to mean exactly the same thing. We have already talked about the fact that ratios are fractions. So you are going to find two equivalent ratios or two equivalent fractions for each of these.